What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning back into my channel, taking time out of your day to watch me and listen to the things that I have to say, which I'm not sure always make sense. Today's video, I think, is going to be a pretty good video, perhaps better than some of the previous ones that I've made. We are continuing our wonderful hacking adventure with the Metasploitable2 virtual machine that we have up and running. We're using Kali Linux as our attack box. Now, I have done upwards of 9 videos previous to this one. I have a playlist that is called Metasploitable2 or Fresh Nose Metasploitable2. Check out the previous videos if you need to get caught up to this point where we are at today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing in this video is going to be classified as enumeration and or privesc or privilege escalation, specifically for Linux as opposed to Windows. Now, as you can see over here in the upper right portion of the screen, I do have the Metasploitable2 machine up and running. I'm showing it on the screen, which is completely not necessary, but the reason that I'm doing that is because I think it just helps bring home the idea, the concept that there is actually a real physical or virtual machine that is out there running, and that the things that we are doing are actually being done to a real system. I think it just helps kind of bring that home a little bit. So we are on our Kali Linux machine, that is our attack box. And one of the things that I want you to see is that if we go up here to the upper left portion of the screen, click on the applications menu, newer versions of Kali Linux, they have organized everything differently. There are additional tabs, if you will, for lack of a better word, that were not previously here. It has been organized in a much different way. I really like this new way that they are doing it. So we have some things that were never here before, such as exfiltration. I don't believe privesc was here neither. So it definitely helps better organize some of these tools and let you know where you should be looking for what if you don't know already. The tools that we're going to be using for this are actually available in number 6, the privilege escalation sub-menu for Kali Linux. Specifically, we are going to be utilizing linpeas, which is a privilege escalation awesome scripts suite. It is actually a part of peas. So what we're going to be using today is called linpeas. You can actually see there's a little image or icon of tux in the lower right there, because this pertains to Linux. Linpeas is a script that is a part of a larger suite of scripts that is known as peas. WinPeas is also a part of peas. Now, this is available on Kali Linux by default. The image that I'm using for this is their VirtualBox image. So we can actually just come up here into this menu. We can click on linpeas, and what it does is it opens up a terminal and it puts you inside of the directory that you need to be in. So you see that we are automatically dropped into user/share/peas/linpeas, and this is everything that resides in that directory. So if we were using an ARM system, or we were doing this on a system other than, and what we have available inside of this directory consists of multiple scripts, not just one, and which script that you might use would depend on what kind of system you are on. So if we were on an ARM system such as a Raspberry Pi, we might use a particular script. The script that we're going to be using is probably the most well known and most used, and that goes by linpeas.sh. Make this a little bit bigger. So I can actually run this right now on my Kali Linux system by doing a / followed by linpeas.sh. It does have a help menu. We can pull that up by running --help. I've done previous videos using this script. I even showed you how you could use this script to help find potential backdoors and vulnerabilities inside IoT devices, because you can actually run this inside of an IoT device. You can use this to do firmware recon by using -f. Go check out that video. For what we are trying to get out of this, we are going to be using this script with -a that will perform all checks, 1 minute of processes. It'll do a su brute and some extra checks. But the issue is that this script is on our Kali Linux system, and we need to get this over to the target system. So I'm going to show you how you are able to transfer a file or a script such as this one over to the target system. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do this the same way we've done it in past videos, and that is using Python. So we're going to start up a web server using Python, and we're going to do that inside of the directory that we are currently in, where we have our linpeas.sh bash script. So we're actually going to run Python 3 with a -m http.server, and I'm doing this on port 8080. You can use any port you want as long as the port is not already in use on your system. So I've started up the web server, and I'm going to open up another tab. If you don't know why I'm doing it this way, I've done a previous video on this. We were able to basically gain access to the box due to a weak SSH password, because the box is using an outdated SSH algorithm. For me to SSH into the box, I have to run this very long command that you see on the screen. You temporarily remove this so you can see the rest of the command. So I will make sure to put this in the description. Once again, this is because of the fact that the target machine Metasploitable2 is using an outdated SSH algorithm. So we hit enter, put in the password, which is msfadmin. The password and the username are the exact same. Both of them are msfadmin. Alright, so we are now logged in to the Metasploitable2 box as msfadmin. I can do who am I. Give me the ID command, and it'll show you all the various groups that we are a part of. One of those is the admin group, so that means that we can execute commands with sudo privileges if we want. Alright, so what we're going to do, in order to get the linpeas.sh bash script off of our Kali Linux machine and over to the target box, we are first going to cd into the temp directory. Why the temp directory? I'm glad that you asked. If you are going to transfer files onto a Linux system from another machine and you don't necessarily have the proper permissions to do so from other directories, the default directory to do this in is going to be the temp directory. The temp directory is a special directory on Linux systems. One of the reasons why is because it is actually considered world writable. This means that users have write and execute permissions inside of this directory. You don't have that in other directories necessarily. The main purpose for the temp directory is to be able to provide a temporary access to files that are needed by various applications and processes. Now there are, as with pretty much everything on Linux, there are multiple ways that we could do this. We are getting this from our Kali Linux system as opposed to grabbing it from the internet, and the main reason why is because you don't actually want this Metasploitable2 box to have access to the internet, because it is so vulnerable. That would not be a good thing. You want this thing isolated inside of the virtual network, such as the one that we have created for us. You don't want to be able to get access to the internet. Therefore, we're not doing this the way that you typically might do this. So I'm going to show you a page here for linpeas. This is the GitHub page for linpeas, specifically underneath the peas-ng main repo. And over here on this page, amongst other things, you can actually click on this and it will play a terminal recording of the script being ran. You scroll down a little bit, you have various ways that you are able to get and run this script on a system. So one of the more popular ways of doing this is to just copy and paste this bash one-liner, and it will make a curl request to this GitHub page, download the latest version of linpeas.sh and pipe it into sh and run it on your system. But we can't do it this way because we don't have access to the internet. There are additional things of interest on this page, such as being able to bypass antivirus and so forth. So definitely worth reading over. I'll include a link for this in the description. Alright, so back on our target system, we already have the Python web server running on Kali Linux. So now we are simply going to make a curl request over our local virtual network to the Kali Linux box. We need to know the IP address of the Kali Linux box. So running ifconfig, we'll quickly grab that. This will be different for you, most likely. And when I ran the Python web server, I ran that on port 8080. So let me go ahead and add 8080 in there. And then finally, we're going to do a / followed by the name of the file that we are using curl to grab, and the name is linpeas.sh. And then we could do this a couple of different ways. We could pipe this into sh and it will immediately run it. But instead of doing that, I prefer to redirect it into a file that we are going to temporarily store inside the temp directory on this system. So now I should be able to run ls-l on linpeas.sh, and there it is. Now if we take a look at the permissions over here on the left hand side, we do not have the proper permissions in order to run it because it's not executable yet. So if I try to run it by doing a / followed by the name of the script, you see that we get a permission denied error. So what we need to do is we need to run chmod +x on linpeas.sh. That will make this executable. Now when I run ls-l again, you see that we now have the executable permission bit enabled. It was not enabled before. So now we should be able to run it without a permission denied error. And I'm going to do -- help once again to pull up the help menu, and there it is. We are going to run this with -a to perform all checks. A couple of different ways we could do this. We could just run it, output everything to the screen, and then scroll back up, or we could redirect this into a file if we want to save it, look at it later. I am just going to output it to the screen, and we will let that run. That's going to grab a lot of information from this box. And while we're waiting for this to finish, we can go ahead and kill the web server. We don't need to have that running any longer. So let's get rid of that. Alright, so while I'm still waiting for this to finish, let's go ahead and just scroll back up to the top and start taking a look at some of this. Now we're getting a lot of information back. We are definitely not going to look at everything. Okay, so here is the start of us running the script. First thing that we get is their signature ASCII art on the screen, which I think is a P. And there is a legend. Anything that shows up in red, you should take a look at. Anything that shows up in red/yellow, you definitely should take a look at. One of the things I really love about this script is it doesn't just give you the thing, but it also shows you where you can read up and learn more about the thing, and it always points you back to different points in this hack tricks book that is written by the same author of this script. Absolutely incredible resource to go take a look at. Alright, so let's go through some of this. There is a lot of information. A lot of this can be used, if nothing else, just as enumeration, just to get a better understanding of the system. Alright, so we have so much information here to actually look at. We have ARP tables, routing information, active ports, firewall rules analysis, letting us know that there is a user on the system with UID of 0, essentially root, and it is just that, it's the root user. Here are all the users that have consoles on the system. All of the users and the groups. Now look at this, this is pretty interesting. I did a video on basic custom backdoors and the detection of those. And we created a persistent backdoor. That backdoor still is existing on this system right now, so every time I start up Metasploitable2, it immediately attempts to make a reverse TCP connection to the Kali Linux box. I cover all of that in the video, go check that out. But what's interesting is that the script has found this information. So we are currently logged in as MSF admin. Here's the IP address, here's all the information on that. Here is us even running the linpeas bash script. But you can see that there is also a root user that is showing up on the system, and that's from that backdoor that we put in. And underneath logged in users, once again, here is the user we're logged in as, and then there is also another user that's logged into the system, and that is that root user. Yet again, the information shows up in the last logins. This information is obviously coming from commands that are being ran on the system, commands that we also ran when we looked at this in that video. But it's just interesting to see that it is catching those things, and we are seeing that information. Alright, so here's the first thing that I want to take a look at from a perspective of getting hands-on with some of this information that we have found. So one of the things it did is it analyzed the HT password files. This is a place where you can definitely potentially find users with passwords or password hashes, and it did just that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 users with hashes for each user. So we're going to go ahead and copy all of that information, and we're going to go back over to our Kali Linux system. There are a couple of different ways that you can do this. I'm going to save all of these inside of a file called hashes.txt. Now we can do this one at a time, or we can try to do them all at the same time. So I'm going to take just this very first one, and I'm going to copy that. And we are going to save that inside of another file called hash.txt. Now there are a couple tools installed on Kali Linux by default that we can use to help identify what type of hash we are dealing with. One of those is called hash ID. So if I do a what is on that, we get back that it is used to identify different types of hashes used to encrypt data. Another one is called hash identifier. And we don't get anything back. You don't get anything back from what is on that. Alright, so if you try to run hash ID on hash.txt, you're not going to get anything back. Reason why is because we need just the hash. So let me grab just that hash. We don't want the username. And we will run hash ID on that hash. And what we get back is that this is potentially a DES or DES hashing algorithm that is used on Unix-like systems. And if we run hash identifier on this same hash, go ahead and paste that in there. Once again, we get back that this this is going to be a DES hashing algorithm, and we don't have any other options with this one. So safe bet to say from running both of these tools is that this is a DES hash. All right, so we're going to attempt to crack this hash. We're going to do that using John the Ripper. If I do a what is on John, we get back that this is a tool to find weak passwords for your users. If we come up here to the applications menu, that is going to be available under credential access, and that is this tool right here. You can open it up that way, and this is what you will get on the screen. Basically, you will get the very healthy help menu that is associated with that. But we're going to run it from this terminal emulator, and we are not going to use any options. I mean, you could dedicate an entire series of videos alone just to the variations of using this tool. Password cracking is very complicated, so many different ways to go about it, but we're keeping it very simple, and I am literally going to run John the Ripper with no options. We do want just the hash though. So we need to get, once again, just the hash and get rid of that username. I don't think that it will be able to identify that. Let me verify that. Let me attempt to run it on that. Actually, I take that back. I stand corrected. So it is able to decipher that information. So very quickly, it was able to crack that password hash. It identified that it was DES. We didn't even have to tell it that it was DES. And within less than a second here, it was able to crack the hash, and the password for this user is guessed. Alright, so if you don't know how John the Ripper works, now that we have ran that, there's going to be a file that is going to be created that is going to exist inside of a dot directory called John. That is going to be called john.pot. So this is basically where John the Ripper stores any of its successfully cracked password hashes. So we cat that out. We have that hash with the password. So now what this will do is, if we attempt any further cracking, it's always going to look here first to try to speed up the process. Alright, so we have that other file that we created that is called hashes.txt. This contains all of the users and hashes that we just acquired, and the first one is the one that we already cracked. So let's go ahead and attempt to use John the Ripper to crack all of these hashes at once. Keep in mind that I am doing this without a dedicated GPU. I'm doing this inside of a virtual machine, and we don't have htop installed, but I believe I have 4 cores dedicated to this virtual machine. A virtual machine with 4 gigs of RAM on it. Let's go ahead and run John on hashes.txt. So it already was able to identify the first one because we already cracked that. Now it's working on the remaining 7, and it's using single mode. And it is already cracking these, so we've already found a few of them. Won't be long before we get all of them. Alright, so that has finished. That did not take long at all, maybe 30 seconds, and it was able to crack every single password hash that we gave it in that file. So now if I rerun that command and I do -- show, we have 8 password hashes that were cracked, 0 left, meaning it successfully cracked every single password hash. Now from this point, we could use that information and use that to get into the database, or the web server, the database that is associated with this. We're not going to do that because we're going to move on to some other things. But that's just a easy, quick example of how you might take information that you have been able to acquire from running this enumeration /privesc script on the system, and then use that information to advance your position. Alright, so let's move on to some other things that this script was able to find. In a previous video, we exploited the system by a vulnerability inside of the SMB protocol. One of the things that allowed us to do that was that it was writable, and we are getting information back pertaining to that in this section of the script. It even managed to find the SSH private key for the MSF admin user. The system does permit root login. Very good information, but what I am interested in looking at now is going to be inside of this section right here. So this particular section pertains to files with interesting permissions on them, specifically SUID. SUID stands for Set User ID, and essentially in layman's terms, this is looking for potential binaries or executables that have the SUID permission enabled on them, or binaries that have a weakness inside of them that will allow you to escalate your privileges to that of the root user. And immediately what you should be seeing on the screen is that Nmap is one of those such binaries. The legend says that anything that is in red you want to take a look at. So we have quite a few in red, but most important to us is red and orange. So Nmap is sticking out to us like a sore thumb right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to go down here to the bottom of the page. We can check to see which version of Nmap is installed on this system by running Nmap with a -V, and we see that it is using Nmap version 4.53. Now there is a wonderful resource that you can take a look at, link will be in the description, and that is GTFOBins. GTFOBins is a curated list of Unix binaries that can be used to bypass local security restrictions in misconfigured systems. So whenever you are searching for binaries like the ones that we are looking through now, this is your go-to resource. You can come over here, you can see which binaries are able to potentially be abused to break out of restricted shells and escalate or maintain your privileges. Now, we already know that Nmap is one of those. You can actually search for that on the search page right here. And if we click on that, we are brought to this page right here. If we have a version of Nmap that falls inside of this range that we are looking at, then one of the things that we can do is we can use Nmap to break out of a restricted environment by spawning an interactive system shell. And there are some other things that you can also do with one of these versions of Nmap, but what we are interested in is going to be this section right here. So this can potentially allow us to spawn a root shell. You can use A or you can use B. We are going to use B, and this is going to allow us to run Nmap in interactive mode. This is only available on versions of Nmap from 2.02 up to 5.21. Looking at the results over here on the Metasploitable2 box, we are using version 4.53, which does fall inside of that range. So we should be able to use this. Alright, so this is very simple. We're just going to run Nmap with --interactive. That should drop us into a dedicated Nmap prompt or shell, and then from there we just run !sh, and if successful, that'll drop us into a root shell. So back on Metasploitable2, we're going to run nmap with -- interactive. Now we have been dropped inside of the nmap shell, and from here we'll do an !sh, and boom, we now have a root shell on Metasploitable2 via a misconfigured nmap binary. So if I run the whoami command, we are now the root user. I run the id command, there are the permissions. So we just escalated our privileges from that of the MSF admin to that of root by way of a misconfigured binary, specifically the nmap binary. Alright, so we're going to leave it at that for this video. I hope that you guys got something out of this. I think that this was a pretty cool video. Hope you agree. If you're interested in learning more about linpeas, check out that GitHub page. And you can follow this gentleman on Twitter at @hacktricks_live. His name is Carlos Palup. He's the main author of book.hacktricks.wiki, an amazing source to learn more about these things. Go check that out. Hey, and you know what else? You better be subscribed to my channel, man. I'm telling you, man. If you made it to this point in the video and you are not subscribed, I gotta ask you, what the hell are you doing? Stop what you're doing right now, hit that subscribe button, and thank you for doing that. I appreciate it very much. As always, keep learning and stay fresh. We will see you in the next video.